Good morning, everybody. It's Sandra here at Huron Ridge Greenhouses, checking in with you on the holiday Monday morning. We are open today from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. So that's a question that a few people have asked. Thought I'd clear that one up right away. We hope to see lots of people out today. It's really windy out today, so definitely take care when you're on your way here. The greenhouse is a little bit loud on a windy day, so don't be too alarmed by that. Sometimes it shakes the plastic pretty good, but so far we're all safe and sound. So anyway, I had a bunch of questions sent in to me again, so I thought I'm going to cover a few more. I didn't get to all of them last week. I had a few questions about lavender, about growing lavender, about maintaining lavender, that sort of thing. So lavender's pretty easy to grow. Definitely, like anything else, you want to have the good quality soil, so that's going to make a difference. It grows quite large. So when you get it in a 4-inch pot, I should have grabbed one. They're quite small, and you'll think, oh, that's not very much, but they really grow. So I actually took a video in my garden last week when I was trimming my lavender, and I'm just gonna quick play it for you. And you'll see what I mean by how big it grows. Hold on. Hey there, it's Sandra. I had somebody ask me about a week ago what they should be doing as far as trimming back their lavender. So I thought I would do a quick little video in my own yard because this is my lavender plant here. So I don't know if you can see with that angle, maybe you have to go up a little bit, Bailey, and see this is all one big lavender plant. This is the center of my lavender plant. It started as a 4-inch pot, believe it or not, and now it's this big. So I've had this one for a few years. It's pretty established. And in the spring, these are last year's sticks. All I do is I just cut it back. You can see there's lots of new growth coming. If I cut off some of the new growth, it's not a big deal. It'll just make it come back more from the center. But really, all I do is take care of cutting off the dead sticks. And yeah, I usually get a pretty bumper crop of lavender every year. So yeah, that's pretty simple. Just give your lavender a haircut, and same thing with your other herbs. This is my sage. I actually just gave it a little trim, so this also came back for several years. I've got some thyme up here in front, and all I'm gonna do is just cut it, so anything that I see that looks really quite dead, and that will just encourage some new growth. So yeah, if you've got some herbs in your yard, time to give them a haircut. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Just trim your lavender and your other herbs. Anything that's a perennial herb that's come back, it's gonna do it some good to have a little trim. Hopefully that answers your question, Gail and Nancy, that both sent me that. Also, Nancy asked me about rhubarb, and I have a really easy time growing rhubarb. My mom has a terrible time growing rhubarb, and so we were talking about this. Why is the difference between why she can't grow rhubarb and why I can? And her land here naturally is very sandy, very gravelly, dries out very quickly. But where I live, my soil is super heavy. So it's really easy for me to grow lavender and rhubarb because it retains the moisture in the soil. So in order for her to have a better crop of rhubarb, she's going to have to add a lot of compost and manure and maybe some topsoil to get some soil there that's going to hold moisture. Now, unfortunately, this year we missed ordering rhubarb, so we don't even have any to sell you. The kind we most often get in is called Canada Red. And I'm going to give you a little tip. If you have a friend with a large rhubarb patch, like I did, my friend Kristen had a huge rhubarb patch. And all I did a few years ago is I went with a shovel and I took a couple big shovelfuls of her rhubarb out. I put them in a cardboard box. I brought them home. I dug a big hole about the same size as what I had dug up at her house. I plopped it in there, and I have had the best rhubarb patch ever. So if you have somebody that you know that has rhubarb and is willing to share with you, it certainly works. So yeah, we don't have any to sell you, but you can certainly still, it's getting a little late though. That's the other thing I should tell you. I got my clump of rhubarb from her, it would have been early spring, before it's really started to leaf out. Like you can see that it's starting to grow, but it hasn't really got those big leaves. Once it's got the big leaves, it's kind of in its production time, and I would hesitate to divide it then. It's just a lot harder to get that plant to transplant well once it's established. So move it when it's dormant, and rhubarb is pretty easy to grow. And again, it does have to do with the heavy soil. Now, the other thing that, just as a side note, I can grow awesome asparagus, I can grow rhubarb, I can grow all those things that are like perennial kind of root things, but I have a really hard time with carrots because my soil is hard. So that's just, the different types of soil are going to grow different things in different ways. So that's just something to keep in mind as a general gardening thing. Jillian asked me about crop rotation in her vegetable garden, if she should be moving things around. Easy answer, yes, absolutely. You do not want to grow your tomatoes in the same spot every year, especially if you've had any problems with tomato blight, because the blight gets in the soil. So absolutely, it's always a good thing to rotate your crops. And if you look at the farmers' fields when you're driving down the roads, if you live in the countryside at all, if you pay attention, you will almost never see the same crop in the field 2 years in a row. So if this year it's corn, usually next year it's beans or it's something else. So that certainly is something to keep in mind. If the farmers are rotating their crops, then we should be too. Yeah. The other thing, when you're planting your garden, if you've got something tall like sweet corn, try to think about how much shade that's going to provide to whatever's beside it. So I tend to plant my corn, if possible, to the east side of my garden, because that way the afternoon sun, it doesn't cast a shadow on my other vegetables. Make sense? That's just another little tip about vegetable gardening. I've had a few people, Monica was one of them, ask me about putting a zucchini in a container. I've never done it. I think you can, but they thought they should have a cage, like a tomato cage. Zucchini is not really a vine. So I brought a little zucchini plant here. You can see this pot, there's actually 3 going to come out of here. If you take a pot home like this of zucchini, cucumber, squash, I'm trying to think of what else we grow like that. Cucamelons, which I'll get to cucamelons in a second. If you have more than one plant in there, lucky you. Do not separate it. These need to stay together. Those roots are so intertwined that if you try to separate them, you are going to have nothing left. They're all going to die. So this needs to be planted as one plant, and it'll be fine. If you want to pinch the other, if you only want one plant, then pinch the others off. But don't try to separate them because you're going to just destroy whatever is growing in here. Zucchini grows, if you've never grown a zucchini gets to be a big plant. So if you're going to grow it in a container, you're going to need a big pot. But they don't grow on the vine like a pumpkin or a squash. They all grow out of the center of the plant. That's the easiest way I can explain it. So certainly you can put a zucchini in a container. I don't know why you couldn't grow a zucchini in a container. It's going to need a lot of water. Zucchinis are pretty thirsty vegetables. But yeah, but just keep in mind, you don't need a trellis. It's not going to grow up. However, if you do decide that you want to do a container with a trellis, these little babies are so cute. Cucamelons. Cucamelon is something that is relatively new to us. We've only been growing it a few years. Also called a Mexican sour gherkin. It grows on a vine. A couple years ago, I had one on like a tomato cage, and it climbed all up. It was really cute. It looks like a miniature watermelon, but it tastes like a cucumber, but kind of citrusy. So they're fun. Little kids love them. You can just pop them in there, like kind of like a cherry tomato idea, but they're just a little cucumber. They're really cute. So that's a cucamelon. That is just kind of a fun thing. I thought I would tell you about that. And Christy asked about hardening off vegetable plants. Great question, Christy. I tried to talk to you guys yesterday about whether or not it's too early to plant, and I think my video cut out. I'm not sure how much you got to see, so sorry about that. The forecast looks very promising as far as planting things outdoors soon, or now even, really. I think in the next 10 days, so far, the forecast says like 8 or 9 degrees overnight. Definitely watch over for cold winds. Cold winds are bad news for tender vegetables. If you want to be super cautious, put them out during the day, bring them in at night. Not such a bad thing for a little bit yet. There is a full moon on June 5th or 6th, I think. So keep an eye out then. Sometimes there can be frost on the first full moon in June when it's early. You may need to cover some things right around then overnight. But again, it's really, unfortunately, I can't predict the weather. And I can't change it. So if I could, man, this spring would have been a whole lot different. But just keep an eye on those temperatures and err on the side of caution, like I told you yesterday. If you want to harden your vegetables off, definitely put them out during the day. If you've been growing baby seedlings inside, get them outside as much as possible. A little bit of wind isn't a bad thing. It's going to stiffen them up. It's really windy. It was super windy last night. Oh my goodness. And it's really windy this morning. So maybe this morning I would keep them in if you don't have, or unless you got a semi-protected area. Yeah. And I generally just wait to plant until I don't have to worry about frost, but I'm a little bit busy for another week or so here. So I probably won't get a chance to do much vegetable gardening before that anyways. We do still have a pretty good supply of most of our vegetables. We're out of a few things. But yeah, we're trying our best. We've got some more of some things coming. And one more thing I'm going to grab just to show you, because I also had a question about this. I just remembered. Hold on one second. And it's these packs that we sell of onions and leeks. So these are seeded directly together in a pot all together. These you have to divide when you go to plant them. So I'm going to take one apart. It's going to make a little mess here in the hallway, but that's okay. These ones, you have to just very gently, you're going to work this apart. And this is going to grow an onion, but you have to plant it like that. And I would just space them out. Onions, I probably do 6-8 inches apart for sure, maybe a little bit further than that. So there's a lot of onions in here when you start to divide them out, and they'll look kind of sad when you plant them because you just pulled them apart from all their friends. But water them real good, or make sure the soil's nice and damp. They'll recover, no problem. It's really quite easy to grow onions. So that's a good way to start. These are red onions. We have red onions, white onions, and leeks. So I think we still have all three of those, which is awesome. Any other questions you have, please send them my way. I'll try to keep answering things this week. Most of you, well, not most, a lot of you have come into the greenhouse, and hopefully we can chat with you when you're here. It's been really hard to help everybody because we don't have as much staff on the floor due to the COVID and social distancing that we need to be doing. We really appreciate everybody's patience this past weekend. Sometimes we had quite long lineups at the checkout, and everybody was super patient, super gracious. We appreciate you so much for supporting our small business. We're doing our best to keep growing you beautiful plants and to help you have a good shopping experience when you're here. It certainly is different this spring, as is everything, but we really do appreciate all of you that have come into the shop or have ordered online. And like I said, send me more questions and I'll keep chatting with you this week. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye for now.